And now on Radio Flange Goblet, the all-new revamped after-movie diner. We did try and kill the show. We even sent the Radio Flange Goblet big game hunter Edo Hootkins after it, but sadly to no avail. He stumbled across the Flange Goblet picnic babes and a collection of old harmonicas, and we haven't seen them since. We also sent wrestling duo Nanette and Billy Boy Atrocity into the cellar armed with weaponized violins to entice the after-movie diner show out of hiding long enough to tranquilize it, pose it in some sexually compromising positions that'll be used later in financial negotiations with the network. Unfortunately, that failed also due to the after-movie diner being almost entirely immune to violin playing, having been trapped in a foxhole in 1978 with Yehudi Menuhin and Yasha Heifetz, who were both trying to get the attention of a rather flamboyant colonel named Nicholas, who had somehow lost all the buttons off his tunic. Lastly, we sent well-known opera singer and killer of porcelain dogs Eric Stoltz, no relation, to Nepal, where he didn't find the after-movie diner, but did pick up Hiker's Husk, a local malady in which your feet completely dry up, turn purple, and become about as useful as Donald Trump at a hairdresser-run beauty pageant. The tribespeople in the village now worship him as a deity and have removed his feet for safekeeping. Also, strangely, his penis. We all here wish him well and have replaced him with a lampstand adorned with a comically fake moustache. So, all of our efforts were sadly in vain, and so here, back after a prolonged absence, is the after-movie diner, which this week comes from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre-themed restaurant in Stoke, where all the waiting staff try really hard to help you, but sadly cannot, as they've all been nailed to the wall. Hello and welcome to a whole new era of the after-movie diner, and it excites me no end to be able to tell you that from now on the diner will be exclusively coming from diners and will feature most predominantly and most frequently my cohort along these many shows, the wonderful and the excellent Mr. James Wallace. Hello, sir.
Hello, I'm very, very, very excited and very proud to be a part of the new diner.
Yes.
It's going to be really fun.
Yes, a lot of people will know James from previous episodes where we have done these little jaunts to theatres and watched movies and then talked about them in random diners. And we are going to do some combination of that, but no matter what happens, the show will always come live from a diner from now on. That's the whole point of the show from now on. That's it.
The after-movie diner.
Literally the after-movie diner. And by hook or by crook, we will be doing it like tonight, where we had many full starts. But in the end, I feel a victory of sorts.
I think definitely a victory. Maybe not for cinema, but for us.
No, but definitely for us, But no, so a big official welcome, sir.
I'm really, really excited and really proud to be asked, because it's always lots of fun to do it, and it makes me watch different kind of movies, and I really like talking with you about them.
Yes.
You know, no matter how grumpy either of us are at the end of the movie, there's always something to be joyful about.
There's always something to talk about,
which is nice, yeah.
Indeed. So yes, so that's the plan going forward, and everything will take place in the diner. So yes, if you need us to mention any of your podcasts or albums, anything that you're doing, books you've written, anything like that, you have to tell us in advance and we'll mention it on the show.
Yeah, we'll mention it in person. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. In the middle of the show, I will be revealing where you can email us, where you can call us, how you can get through to us, and so on. But for the time being, we are in Louis' Dale Diner, which is up on 231st Street.
In Crossy's Hood.
Yes, in just off Broadway in the Bronx. And we've done many shows from here before, but most recently the Inseminoid show.
Yeah, we did Inseminoid from here.
So do you want to, I always dread this moment, but no, instead of going through the plot,
because
why don't you explain what went on tonight and what the big problem was and why we ended up doing what we did?
Yeah, fair enough. So, I guess what we decided was that there isn't always a week where there's a good movie on it near us or in New York. We really wanted to go and watch the Jean-Claude Van Damme gets his kidney stolen movie, but for some reason it's not playing in New York, which we were really disappointed about.
Which is called Pound of Flesh.
Pound of Flesh, right.
And stars as the villain, the now sadly departed Darren Shalaby, previous guest of Dr. Action, the Kick-Ass Kid.
Oh. Anyway, So we decided, well, Crossy gets sent a lot of review copies of movies by Blue Underground and Arrow Films, and when there's a week where there isn't a good movie on the cinema, we'll go back to the Bronx and we'll watch one of his, Blue Underground Mad films, and then talk about it in the diner after, which was supposed to be the plan tonight, except that every movie we tried, and there were. It was just two, right? It was just the two we tried.
Yeah, we only tried two, but we eliminated several just based on their length, their mood, their...
Yeah. We went for one that we thought was going to be nice and balmy, but it wasn't. It was just like extreme and nasty.
Well, we went for one called Island of Death.
Yeah, but that was nice.
Which Jim had looked up and was about two. Well, it was meant to be about two mad British people go to a Greek island and cause general havoc, directed by some crazy Greek people. And what it turned out to be was sort of abusive sexual weirdness, in which very, very bad actors and actresses did a lot of borderline unattractive, hideous, porny things.
Yeah, but it was just like dry humping and then unconvincing. It was like dry humping followed by unconvincing murder scene.
Right.
In an unpleasant way.
And someone woke up in the morning and had sex with a goat.
Yeah, and after about 25 minutes, believe me, that sounds more fun than it really was. It was just awful and boring and not nice.
Yeah, it was really.
And then we tried a Yakuza film, which was like
For
after
the
5
60s.
minutes of like black and white moody jazz. We thought, well, we're not in the mood for this either. Like, there's a time for black and white moody jazz.
It's a Sunday afternoon Yakuza movie from the 60s where, like, if you were sat watching it with Peter Weller, that would be worthwhile.
Yeah, you imagine this is what Peter Weller's life is watching jazzy Yakuza films from the 60s.
In black and white, right.
That's what he liked. But unfortunately, we weren't in the mood for that. And just to be about to give in, Crossy pointed out that he had the Dolph Lundgren, Michael Jar, Tony Jaa,
Peter Weller,
Ron Perlman
movie.
film, Skin Train.
Yeah.
But that's what we decided on because how could that not be awesome?
Right.
So another thing, so that's what led us here. Another thing we want to try and do from now on is we want to let people know whether it's a film they should watch. Because if it's a film they want to watch, then they don't want to listen to us give away every part of it.
Right.
But if it's a film that they're not going to want to watch, then that's fine. They can listen to us talk about it.
So instead of us saying spoilers, basically, we're going to go watch this or don't watch this.
Yeah.
Right. Basically, if we say don't watch it, then listen to the episode because we're going to humorously discuss it or cut it down.
Yeah.
But if we say watch it, go watch.
Humour not guaranteed.
Yeah, humour not guaranteed. If we say watch it, go away and watch it, then come back and listen to the episode.
Yeah, that's basically fine. But there will occasionally be, and this film is going to be one of those things. Where
Right.
We will tell you
where
what
it's
kind
utterly...
of. If you're looking for this kind of movie, then you should watch it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, okay, so me being the slightly more action expert, I would guess.
Yeah.
Certainly the more sort of straight-to-video B-movie actioner, I would say watch this. I would say beware that the first 25 minutes or the first 30 minutes are going to have a series of action sequences where you're like, if the whole movie is this, it's really not going to cut the mustard. However, in the second and third acts, Tony Jaa, Dolph Lundgren, and Michael Jar White in particular all step up to the plate and give some pretty impressive action, fight, chase, gun scenes that are well worth your time if you're into this sort of B-movie action fare.
And
would you say that was...
I would say that was absolutely fair. And if you wanted to know me, who's not such a big action fan, although I do really like my action, another thing to say is if you're looking for a film that makes sense and has characters and pulls you in and grips you and takes you along, that kind of an action film, look elsewhere.
Right.
There are better films than this. There are things about it in the movie to admire, no question.
Right.
And if you're looking for like a moronic movie with some action scenes, you could certainly do a lot worse. You're right, you have to sit through a lot of nothing really happening.
Right.
But if you're like, oh well, I like really good action films, like Taken or whatever, then this probably isn't for you.
Right. But to be fair,
if you like action films,
on terms of B-movie versions of Taken, right, which I know sounds ridiculous because Taken itself is sort of A-list version of several B-movies, but as B-movie versions of Taken go, of which there have been many over the last couple of years, this was one of the better ones in terms of action. The problem with it is it also tries to whip in too much plot. It tries to keep it tries to overcomplicate and overegg the pudding.
Well, let's
and by doing that, it takes away from your action dollar.
If you were just going to be out for action, there's not enough of it, in my opinion. If you're being asked to ignore, but if you're being asked to ignore like the fact that the plot don't work and the characters don't really grab you in and there's not much to take you in, then we have to have like the action sequences that are really good, but like they're towards the end of the movie, and there needs to be more of those in the beginning.
Right.
Otherwise, I feel like you're not getting into it. But anyway, so we did our bit. So now you can make a decision. And now some decision making.
Decision making is being made.
And I tell you what, during this time, we'll decide what we're going to eat. I decided I'm going to have the ranch burger,
and I'm having
because it's got fried egg, cheddar cheese, and bacon.
That sounds like amazing.
So I'm going to have one of those.
Sounds amazing. I can strongly suggest the burgers and the sandwiches here at
I'm going to have the burger.
Louis.
Let's attract our attention. Do you know what you're going to have?
I'm having the French dip cheese.
Okay, well, let's...
Saucy.
Literally saucy.
Literally. Well, juicy. Not really saucy, juicy.
So I guess we could... I guess your decision making is probably done.
So shall I quickly try and attempt to encapsulate the plot?
Yeah, well, I think because I think we can all agree. Anyone that's listened to me on the diner knows that my strength is not plot summarising.
No, it's not indeed, and it's not an easy plot to summarise. To be fair,
it really isn't.
If anyone has seen the summarised Proust competition, I feel a bit like that.
Dolph, in his first film, wrote about.
He did write this. This was written and produced by none other than Signores Lundgren.
And it turns out.
Okay, you guys ready?
Yes,
great, thank you.
Go ahead.
Can I get the ranch burger?
Yeah.
Well done, just on its own, not deluxe.
Okay. How do you want the egg?
What's the one where
We
it's
do it fried, where there's no juice.
yeah?
And then there's over easy, where there's a lot of
Fried.
juice.
Fried.
Okay, what about you?
Yeah, I'm just having the French dip.
French dip. That's it, guys?
That's it.
Can I get like a chamomile tea?
No, you said that was it. I'm done.
Oh, if I'd known it was a question of timing.
You want milk, lemon, half and half?
No, just the
Just
chamomile
black.
outside, yeah.
What about you?
Oh no, I'm good with water. Thanks.
Okay, good.
Thanks very much, cheers.
Thank you.
All right, well, you take it away, good luck.
All right, so there are people being trafficked
That
in.
That is definitely true.
That's definitely happening.
We can definitely say that.
From Thailand, right?
Yes.
And Cambodia and various other places like that.
Don't complicate it.
I'm not going to stick with Thailand. It's good, right? By Ron Perlman, who is a Russian mobster who has
Serbian.
no, but he's a Russian citizen now.
Yes, but
All right,
he was,
originally.
he is Serbian.
No, it's Ron Perlman doing a ridiculous accent. It doesn't really matter
Ron
where he's
Perlman, a
from.
war criminal bastard. He's a war criminal.
He's a war criminal
Yeah.
who Serbia gave up, but Russia took in. Little jabs at Putin there, but anyway. So Ron Perlman has how many? Four sons.
4 sons.
That's 4 sons, but one is not by the original mother. He is from a whore, and that is like a constant problem throughout the movie, apparently. Tony Jaa is a crusading cop in Thailand who has a girlfriend who is a previous traffickee.
Still, current traffic.
Well, she's undercover.
Oh, she's been trafficked, and now she's at the end of what happens after you get trafficked.
Right,
but
she's kind of
she's
like
still working.
She's working in a strip club kind of
Yes.
thing. And
Mostly drinks, some shagging.
he keeps jumping in and saving her every time the shagging might take place.
Yes, but one would assume that occasionally he's a bit late. Or,
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
But that's his girlfriend is a previous traffickee.
Yes.
And Lundgren is in New York, New Jersey, handling that
Newark.
side of it.
Newark.
Right, handling that side of it, although he did mention New York at one point as well. But anyway, he's in New Jersey handling that side of it because that's where the ships come in to American ports.
Yes.
Where he is working in a conjunction with Michael J. White and Peter Weller as
Underneath.
FBI liaison.
FBI liaison.
Okay, I'm out of
Michael
chamomile.
Jordan.
Can I get you anything else?
Green.
Okay, perfect.
Lovely, thank you. Michael J. White is the FBI, and Pete Weller is police captain.
Right.
The Bebop police captain.
And he's amazing.
He is amazing.
In the few,
Even though he looks like he is slowly turning into Skeletor,
Yeah.
he is amazing.
but he has few small scenes. But in the scenes,
He's like Jazz Skeletor.
he does not disappoint.
No, he does
at any
not.
point. He
Yeah.
said at one point he does say, "I should rip your fucking eyes out,"
Yeah.
which is amazing.
What's the thing about, and I consider every one of them,
A damn shame.
no, I consider every one of them, pause,
Yeah.
a goddamn tragedy.
That's it. Yeah. He has to have the bebop pause before he does it. But he's incredible. Like if you're, and
Yeah,
then,
really, every time Weller pauses, you know,
exactly what you
but
do.
I consider every single one of them goddamn
Goddamn
tragedy.
tragedy.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, well. So yeah, he is why you watch the first 20 minutes of this
Yeah, no
movie,
question.
and Tony Jaa is the reason why you watch the second half of this movie.
Yeah.
So into
I'm sorry, I
this,
pulled you off topic already.
It's all right.
Just my very presence.
into
here.
this cacophony of madness and
Dolph,
B-movie
remember,
legendary.
Dolph is in Newark, Tony Jaa is in Thailand.
Right.
Girls go from Thailand to Newark.
That's all we need to know at this point. And Ron Perlman goes everywhere, overseeing it all with his ragtag band of weird.
Mini war criminals?
Yeah, well, one of them's coke snorting son who runs a sex club in Bangkok. The other one is a very sort of weak-willed son, but wants to be exactly like his father. Another one is a very headstrong son, and the fourth one, I forget anything about him except he's going to look after Southeast Asia, apparently. Anyway,
No, I think he's looking after Romania,
When-
Hungary, Czech Republic.
well done for remembering that. But they both divide Southeast Asia.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so at a shootout in the docks, in Newark, Ron Perlman's weak son gets shot by Lundgren. This, in turn, has the Russians, Serbians, whatever they are, retaliate by blowing up Lundgren's wife and child.
Yeah.
And their family home and everything, and shooting Lundgren twice in the back. Lundgren, who then goes into hospital, despite there being no nurses and no doctors and no nothing, escapes then from hospital, tearing off his bandages and everything, without being particularly cured, and then he goes into a restaurant in Russia Town, Newark, I presume, or Little Russia, Newark, or whatever it is. Maybe it's Little
We should talk about that a bit later because I want to go into that.
and he, well, okay.
gains
So Lundgren goes on a Taken-esque spree to avenge the death of his wife and child.
Right.
Tony Jaa and Michael Jaa White goes to Thailand to stop Lundgren with the help of Tony Jaa.
Because that's where Ron Perlman's gone.
Because that's where Ron Perlman's gone. He's gone back to Asia. And then there is a long series of things where who's good, who's bad, who do you side with, what's going on.
Made Crossy cry at one point. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who to root for. Everyone's so ambiguous.
Yes.
Which I thought was great.
Everyone, and I think that, to be fair, my ultimate conclusion of the movie is still going to be that Lundgren, in his, I think, sincere and honest desire to write a decent, complicated crime drama script, way over egged it. Basically, they all end up in Thailand. Tony Jaa's against
Michael Jaa
Lundgren.
White are all in Thailand.
Right.
And so is Ron Perlman. And they've got a bunch of very complicated stuff to sort.
And the power structure shifts throughout.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, fair
but
enough.
I'm going to tell you why, or who's bad, or who's good, or what happens.
Right. Yeah, fair enough.
Right, but that's it. But everyone's very ambiguous except Tony Jaa, who is
Not ambiguous.
not ambiguous. He's very heroic, very sweet,
Extremely heroic. Yes.
very nice,
Extra.
and yes. So it's part taken, part
That's kind of revenge,
Kind of buddy cop thing.
Kind of. It's not. Well, I guess there's some buddy cop. in
there's
there.
revenge, buddy cop thing, takenage, trafficage. There's lots of stuff
and
going on.
trying to come up with a plot that means Dolph won't have to run very often.
Right, even though this plot seems to necessitate him running
A lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
Even though watching him run is a bit like two Scotsmen trying to move an oak tree from one end.
Two invisible Scotsmen trying to move an oak tree.
from one end of a football pitch to another.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that they wouldn't achieve their goal. It's just that
Well, it would happen eventually, but it would be so uncomfortable to watch. You know what I mean, you wouldn't charge money. You know what I mean, you wouldn't pay to see that event. You know what I mean, because after all, you become suspicious that it's just an oak tree moving slowly.
Right, exactly. So, go ahead with your comments.
Well, okay, so first of all, we really liked the opening 10 minutes because good people kept turning up, being cool. There was a thing right at the beginning with Dolph chasing some suspect, and what was really good about it is the suspect was like, spry junkie basically. Your standard spry runs over rooftops junkie at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
And Dolph could hardly run.
Right.
And was properly like huffing and puffing, and even stopped at one point to take a sip of beer, and instead just like figured out where the guy was going to run to, waited around the corner and grabbed him. And that was kind of cool. It was like going, yes, I'm 60 and I'm Dolph.
Right.
That was kind of cool. And then, there's Tony Jaa,
And
like
moving
kicking the
me
shit out of
is
some
like
people.
watching two Filipinos wrestle with a couch.
Right. Actually, that's probably better. Tony Jaa, like, kicked some shit out of some like bad people in the room, and Michael Jai White and Peter Weller wander around looking cool.
Being bebop
and cool. So already we're on board with the film. I think,
and it's not bad direction. During the shootout at the docks, there's some very nice overhead shots.
But a couple of things happened back to back really quickly that put me off them. And they were, the whole film was supposed to be about, the skin trade, it's all really evil. And then there were like elongated shots of the strip club in Bangkok with like go-go dancers and topless dancing and beautiful women and jiving to the music, and it all went on a bit longer than it needed to, and it was a bit like, look, looking at tits is bad, these tits are alright, don't worry, you can look at these tits, so that was a bit weird. Then they had Dolph Lundgren and his daughter, that's fine, she was about 20, well that's realistic, Dolph's in his 50s, maybe 60, 20-year-old daughter, yeah, I'd buy that. And then a woman walks in, and it's supposed to be, as far as I can tell,
Dolph
Lundgren's wife, but could just as easily be the twin sister, because this woman was 25, 26, if that. And then there's a scene of like her taking her clothes off and like, driving with some lingerie in front of Dolph.
Because it's their 13th anniversary.
No way is this woman 40.
Right.
No way.
What it made me think is that maybe back in the day he'd been part of the skin trade, and maybe he had like procured his wife when she was a teen. Because they'd apparently been together 13 years.
But it's just quite peculiar to watch this film. It's all setting up, the skin trade's really evil, look at all these poor women and all the rest of it. And then there's like a bunch of things of like just voyeuristic, which is like, it's fine, I've got no problem with that, but it all lasted a bit too long. And I think actually that's a function of another problem. Just very quickly. I think that might be a function of another problem the movie had, which was I don't think they had a lot of footage, because there were lots of repeated shots. Like there's the guys that get out of the Jeep later on, and they're in a fight, and they get out of the Jeep and close the door behind them and start firing, and that happens twice inside 30 seconds.
Right.
Because they need a shot of like guys, but they've only got the same shot, so they repeat it. When he's running over the rooftops, they repeat the same shot, only like from a different angle, but it's clearly the same shot. And I wonder whether what made us uncomfortable, which was how long like the boob shots went on for, was actually a function of they didn't have enough footage.
No, I tell you what that's a function of. That's a function of we have to sell that. And sadly, straight to video stuff and straight to DVD stuff, or even like straight to small time cinema stuff these days is going back to the way it was on video days, where it's like,
I've got no problem with boobs. I like boobs. Boobs are nice, right? But don't be putting them in a film where it's all about, Thai girls dancing in a strip club is really evil. Look at these Thai girls dancing in the strip club. You can look at them a bit, that's okay, but because either like we're being like made to feel complicit in the nightmare that is the skin trade, in which case, do me a favour, I stuck a Dolph Lundgren film on. I don't need to be implicated in the human condition, do you know what I mean? In the sickness of humanity, thanks. Right? Or, it's fine to have them dancing, but don't be like,
Enjoy.
Thank you very much. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Magic. Wow, this looks great.
So, that was a little odd.
And that was just a bit like off-putting. And then there was the scene with the undercover woman getting, about to get porked by the three blokes. And again, it's like, it went on way, like, we know Tony Jaa's going to burst in the room and beat the shit out of them, but it didn't need to last that long. The scene with them fondling her on the bed lasted longer than the bloody fight scene.
Yeah, that was my big problem, is that there were a couple of times at the beginning where you knew a fight scene was coming, but when the fight scene arrived, it was shorter than the incredibly long build.
Right, that happened. Yeah, you're right. That happened a lot.
And for me, the payoff has got to be better than the build-up, right? Because I've seen enough of these movies that when there's a build-up happening, oh, you're going to be the new woman in the film. Thank you so much.
I love it.
You're going to be the new woman in our movie. Da 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 da. You're like, oh, okay. Here's the setup for when Jar comes in and busts some heads.
Right.
But sadly, that was a little lacking and was problematic. And it was just generally, I think also, I don't know about you, but I had major hangover from the previous 25 minutes of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Trek that we had watched.
Yeah, that's
so
a good
suddenly,
point.
every single time I saw a woman who was being, let's be fair, objectified, whether even if it was in a loving marriage way or even if it was in a strip club way, they were all being objectified. Having seen 25 minutes of Island of Death, I was like, I just had a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree with that.
And even though, like you said halfway through, I think what they're trying to do was be like, loving sex is fine, but, grim, horrible, under-the-counter sex is bad. I'm like, I presume everyone watching the movie already knows that. And
yeah, it was a bit of that's those things are all fine. It's okay to have boobs and dancing girls keep on, but they lingered on it was the problem. But even that was like, okay, well maybe this will get better. I get it. It's a direct-to-video movie. It's just boobs. Let's not take it too seriously. But the thing that totally threw me out there and go, right, this film is just Barbie. It's just straight up Barbie. It was Dolph, comes out of the hospital, right? Wants to find information. So he goes to a restaurant owned by one of the Serbians. Now bear in mind,
that wasn't established.
Right, it wasn't really established until later. This is a restaurant. What we see is Dolph walks into a restaurant and starts shooting people in the head. Just walks in, goes, excuse me, you seem to have a shotgun. Are you sure you want to be doing that? Shoots him in the chest. Turns around, someone stands up and goes, I'm a diplomat, what are you doing? Shoots him in the head. And then gets the information he wants from whoever owns the bar, walks out, and then blows the entire bar up, including an old woman in the corner who was eating, right? So she was definitely in the restaurant when Dolph exploded it. Right. So in other words, the lesson here is, presumably,
I love the way
if you're
that
going to eat
now
out,
saying exploded it rather than blew it up, but I like it. I like it. Go with it.
Presumably, the moral here is, if you're going to, and you should pay attention to this, folks, if you're going to eat out in New York, make sure you research, the ownership structure, no matter how shady or shadowy, of the restaurant, in case you become morally culpable for the crimes of its owner, according to whatever that was Swedish beefcake wanders in.
There was some insanely graphic moments. You know what I mean? There was, and not graphic because there was blood all over the wall or whatever, but just I didn't expect him to go. It was like that scene in The Fisher King when Babbitts goes in and blows up the yuppie.
Right, it was just like that, and nobody mentions it again. Nobody says, listen mate, we've got to bring you back to put you in jail for murdering a restaurant full of people. They're all like, oh well, he's on a revenge kick, so we understand.
No, had it been set up that restaurant was part of it,
fine.
And like I said to Jim halfway through,
look, action films are full of bars owned by bad people. And all you do is just stick people with ponytails,
right?
Fat bikers,
right?
Greasy people. Obvious, look at this. It's all right. They're all criminals. They're all in on the scheme.
Right.
But this is a nice, smart restaurant with old women eating in it.
Yeah.
And Dolph just blew everybody to pieces.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Well, it's like what I said to Jim. It's like the fact that through all of Liam Neeson's barbarity and taking, that you're on his side is actually kind of a bit of a fine line, because first of all, you're aware that the daughter is alive and that he's trying to get to the daughter, and you're aware that with each passing minute there could be drugs and sex happening to the daughter, and that is utterly vile and repellent. Secondly, everyone he comes across is genuinely and actually culpable and linked to him directly.
Are you doing good? How was everything okay?
Oh, it's amazing, thank you. So the same can't be said here, because although there are plenty of scenes, and although it is a full-length movie, exposition there is not. You know what I mean?
It's very strange for a movie with so much in it. You wouldn't believe that about halfway through the movie, they just start throwing plot ideas in there, presumably because they think, well, we've got to like eat up screen time here. Because there's no okay. I'll tell you another thing that happens that gives you a clue as to like Dolph's like what happens when Dolph gets to Thailand. If there isn't that Liam Neeson thing of having to like work your way through an organisation to get to where you want to go, he just like finds out. Oh, they work in. He walks into a club that like someone showed him a photo of the club like back in Newark because fortunately the person who worked in the restaurant happens to keep a photo of where the guy who's anyway it doesn't really matter. It's just like absurd, but fair enough. So he goes to the club, beats up one bloke, gets the name of a warehouse, and then something happens where he goes to the warehouse and he's followed by Tony Jaa, where they have a fight, a pretty cool fight,
very awesome fight.
But then Dolph runs away, and then Tony Jaa goes back to the club, finds out, oh yeah, this guy told him to go to the warehouse. So then he goes back to the warehouse, which is where Dolph is. He goes, well, how did you go to the warehouse in the first place? Like, what was the point in that? Well, you just go to the warehouse twice. And any movie that's supposed to be about you've got to find the killers, and you end up going back to the same place twice, like directly after each other, with no explanation. Well, if it wasn't a warehouse, then what the fuck were they doing then?
I don't know.
I recognised the cage, where the guy sits.
Right.
It was the same place.
Maybe then, I don't know.
But that just tells you, like there's too little for Dolph to do. Like he should be like beating the crap out of people and finding out what's going on, but there's no sense of him like being in the dark.
Right.
And the more violence he commits, like the more he knows what's going on.
Right.
It's just a kind of like a guy walks into a bar and threatens somebody and gets told, like immediately he gets told where the guy is. Like that's it.
Right. The weirdest thing about it is, on my side, right, is that the most successful straight-to-DVD action movies keep the plot and the dialogue very, very simple.
Right.
Now, they might have the taken thing of, like you say, going from one thing to another to like achieve the ultimate goal.
Right.
Basically like a computer game. It might have that, but ultimately it'll be a fairly simple thing. And they keep the action, like they focus on the action. The good ones do anyway. Right? This one tried to do both. Like it focused on, there was some scenes where it definitely focused on the action. And in fact, there's a whole plot twist in the movie that is purely in there so that you can set up a fight. So that everyone gets to fight each other, right, essentially.
Which is when I realised that I wasn't too fussed with because it totally comes out of nowhere, that particular plot twist. And it doesn't seem to serve any purpose, but you're right. When it became apparent that was to set up the big fight, I was that's fine.
Right, because you've got Michael Jai White, Dolph Lundgren, Tony Jaa. These are your action heroes and your martial artists in the movie, and then you've got your Ron Perlman and your Peter Weller for the the high-end educated sort,
Right.
To bring a bit of class to the picture. They class it up. We interrupt this podcast to say hello, valued listener. Thank you ever so much for finding and listening to this episode of the After Movie Diner. Well done, you. Give yourself a quick, swift, round pat on the back. We do hope you're enjoying the show, but even if you're not, or if you are, if you've got a question, or if you've got a suggestion, why don't you drop us a line over at aftermoviediner@gmail.com. That's aftermoviediner@gmail.com. Maybe you don't want to write a long, cumbersome email. Maybe you have problems with your spelling. Maybe you don't have an email address because you're old and infirmed and still living in the 1970s in a pair of plaid pants in an orange room. Well, if that's the case, then why not give us a call over at 347-669-0053 and leave us a voicemail in your very own dulcet tones. That's 347-669-0053. Of course, maybe you don't want to spend the money on a whole long phone call. Well, we do have a free voicemail service at speakpipe.com. That's www.speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner, and use your computer, laptop, tablet, or whatever to leave us a 90-second voicemail over at Speak. That's what I'm doing with my mouth. Pipe, that's what plumbers do when they plumb.com/aftermoviediner, and let us know what you think of the show. Now, while SpeakPipe might be completely and utterly free for you to use, what isn't completely and utterly free is producing one of these shows each week. There's obviously the movie to pay for, the diner to pay for, the website to pay for, there's the editing man hours, and so on and so on. The list goes on. And I know that you're all listening to this thinking, how can I contribute, sponsor, or become a patron of the After Movie Diner? Well, it's quite simple. You go to www.patreon.com, that's Patreon.com, patreon.com/aftermoviediner. You're hopefully noticing a pattern by now. And donate to the show up to $1 per show or 70p if you're living in the UK. And that would go a great way to helping us produce this fantastic show each week. So that's www.patreon.com/aftermoviediner. Failing all those things, you don't want to do any of those things, why not rate and review us on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find the show. It really, really would help. Thank you very much for listening to this short, but definitely not pointless message. And now back to the regular programming.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think what disappoints me most about the whole movie, it started off really well.
Peter Weller didn't inexplicably show up in Thailand at the end and shoot
There
everybody.
should be way more Weller for a start. I mean, that should be your rule with every movie.
Right.
But there's good people in there, like Lundgren, Jar White, and Tony
Who
Jaa.
were all good in the movie, to be fair. They were all good in the movie.
But like Tony Jaa's wasted.
And when there was dialogue, it wasn't atrocious. Like, it really wasn't that
No,
bad.
it was fine.
Like, the script was, like, dialogue-wise, was alright. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't like we were sat there with, like, giggling at, like, awful exposition. It was fine.
No, but the problem was it was badly put together.
Right.
And clearly what happened was,
Which I literally think is just a fault of low-budget movies these days.
yeah, I mean, that could well be true.
You shoot what you can and you put together what you can.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely an element of that, especially those repeated shots, you're right, that was definitely going on. But, and I get you've only got Weller for a certain amount of time, and you probably only got Perlman for a certain amount of time and all the rest of that, and that's all fine, that's all, that's all cool. But I know it was worth it for the Jai White and Jar fight. It was worth it for the Dolph Lundgren and Tony Jaa fight. And
It was almost worth it for the chase.
There was a couple of stunts that Jar did that were really cool, but like that chase should have been nothing but stunts from Jar. You know, like that would. What's the point in setting up this chase? Because, like you said, they set this chase where Tony Jaa's chasing Dolph Lundgren, and Dolph Lundgren's on a motorbike through a market, and Tony Jaa's trying to chase him. Well, that should be every now and then you cut to Dolph Lundgren, but really you're watching like Tony Jaa like leaping over rooftops and doing crazy things to try and catch it, right? Because he's on a motorbike and he's on foot.
Right.
That would be amazing. Instead, you're treated to like 5 solid minutes, pretty much, of Dolph Lundgren on a motorbike. What? That's not interesting.
Right.
With like occasional glimpses of Tony Jaa doing something really cool.
Right.
And yeah, you're right, that's a function of, well, they didn't get the footage of like Tony Jaa, but then you need to know that's your big fucking scene, and then...
Yeah, it's really odd with Tony Jaa because the Ong Bak movies are really good, or certainly the first two are, and then the first Protector is really good. But Protector 2 was rock, like just rock. And this one was like a slight step back in the right direction, but really, and even his scenes in Fast 7, because he was in Fast and Furious 7, are very good, but very short-lived, you know what I mean? So, like, because part of me was like, well, maybe it's low budget, they didn't have the fight choreographers, they didn't have the stunt team, they didn't have the health and safety, blah, 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 blah. Maybe he didn't feel like comfortable doing, as much as he would have done on a big A picture or whatever. But he's been in like big A pictures, and I think The Protector 2 was probably a fairly well-financed film considering how well The Protector 1 did, and he just hasn't cut the mustard. He's still waiting for I know he did some very good movies early on, but he's still waiting for his big actual movie, you know what I mean?
Well, I think part of the problem seems to be...
Like Jet Li had enough stuff to do in Lethal Weapon 4 and then went on to do a few American movies.
It's tougher. The lesson you get from this movie is it's tougher than you might think to come up with a movie where a bunch of people kick ass. Like, it's not that easy, because you've actually got it's like what you were saying with what was was it the Gunman, or I can't remember what it was, but you were talking about a movie about how the Avengers. We talk about the Avengers, Age of Ultron. How action scenes like that only work if you're invested.
Can I give you guys anything else?
No, I'm all right for now.
I'm good.
That's for you.
Okay, thank you. We will, thank you. Unless you're emotionally invested in the action scene, unless you've set them up, right? But the reason that the Neeson one works so well is it's a small amount of setup, but then every fight is a setup for the rest of the movie, because it's always moving forward. But it's not that easy to come up with that. And like you say, it didn't occur to me until you pointed it out, it's very difficult to get people on the side of a guy who's going to spend the whole movie beating the crap out of / killing people. It's not easy.
Right.
And revenge seems to me to be like, you know, it's a complicated motive, revenge, because at some point, you know, there's a bit where he could shoot Ron Perlman at the beginning of the movie, and he doesn't. You're like, yeah, good on you for not shooting him, because I've watched enough B movies so that you're not supposed to do that.
But then Ron Perlman has his family blown up.
Right, and that's fine, I get that, but...
And we are meant to go, well, wait a minute, he blew up his wife and child, you know what I mean? Like, that is the motivating factor.
And that's, you know, and that's totally cool. That even though you spotted the, you know, the twist or whatever from a mile away, I didn't. There was lots about it to like, but mostly I think it was a bit frustrating because there was a feeling of if you just spent like a little bit more time, and I don't even think it was a question of script. I think it was a question of planning. You know, if you'd had a bit more time, you know, to set up like, well, what's Jar going to do? Because it was all like, oh yeah, we'll do like a rooftop chase, and Dolph can be on the motorbike, and Tony Jar can like jump out the roof. But it's a bit like, and Jar's going to get there and go, okay, so what do you want me to do? Oh, you know, run over the roofs, do some stuff. And he's like, well, we've only got 3 hours to do this. There's no like planning. It's like, okay, so we've got this big thing where we've looked at this place and this thing is, you know what I mean? Like, and then we're going to have a crane here and you're going to run down and like put all those things together and make a big scene. But it's more like, well, we'll turn up and we'll shoot and something cool will happen because we've got some good people here. And like the only things that were good were the fights, and I feel like they were good because they obviously practiced them.
Right.
You know, in other rooms before they came to shoot them.
Yeah.
And the whole movie.
And also because in both cases with the big fight, they give equal time to both people.
Yeah, which is true.
I'll give you my card. Hang on a second.
I'll be right back.
All right, thanks. They gave equal time to both people, which was awesome.
Yeah, we got much time.
Yeah. So that was very good.
I have to say,
I think that honestly, people going into this movie are going to be going into the movie for the cast. That's what they are, right? So speaking to those people who are going into this movie for the cast,
yes,
right? If you like Bebop Weller, you get some Bebop Weller. You don't get enough of it. You get a couple of bits where you're like, nice, right? If you're going in it for
about as much Weller as you would expect in that movie, though,
right?
You would expect him to be a bit of a cameo.
And if you're going in it to see Tony Jaa do some stuff, he does do some stuff.
He does do some stuff. It's just like not as much as you would like.
Right.
There's too much of him not doing stuff is the problem. If it was like other things were happening, that would be okay. But there's too much of him like running down roads or shooting guns. I'm not in here to see Jar run and shoot guns. Right. Anyone can do that. I happen to know from other bits of the movie he can do amazing things. So why isn't he doing amazing things?
Right.
Right? That's my problem.
Yeah, that's the thing. Lundgren's
good.
Lundgren's the best. Lundgren's the best he's been in one of these DTV action movies for a long, long time.
And they've thought about it as well. I like the fact that he runs out of the hospital because even though it's like horribly unrealistic, he does have this like huge like monstrous scar, you know, by his eye, and that looks very cool. And there's a thing going through the whole movie where like trying to fight Lundgren is like trying to fight a tree. Like even the sound effects, when anybody like hits Lundgren, it's like they've got a sound effect of somebody punching a tree or something, you know, or throwing a bag of flour against a tree.
Thanks, guys, for coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You could just leave it there. I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Oh, very kind.
And that's been like thought about, you know, like those sound effects when Jar was hitting Lundgren were thought about. You know, it was definitely a thing that when Jar was going to hit him, it was going to make this noise because, and the way it was filmed was like, there's no way you're ever going to bring Lundgren down. He's a trick. And even though it was like you say, a bit unrealistic, I did feel like he did like spin his way around Lundgren, jump around and hit him and try and bring him down, but it was like trying to bring down, you know, some mad, you know, troll with a PhD essentially.
Right.
And that was kind of cool and well thought out. And like the stuff that, you know, the things that Lundgren had to go through and the decisions that he had to make, like they all made sense, but it wasn't enough for the whole movie. Not if you're going to get a lot of very cool people to be in it, you know.
Right.
Because all it's reminding you is, I'd rather be watching like Lundgren driving through a market on a motorbike while being chased by random guys. That's fine. But if he's being chased by somebody who you want to see the chasing guy, you don't want to see Lundgren on a fucking motorbike. You know? No, especially since he's pretty obviously on the back of a car. No matter how much he's looking around looking panicked, he's obviously not riding the motorbike, or he would have crashed a million times because he's never looking forward.
Yeah, it's very odd. There's something that happens with these, and I think you're right. I think it's to do with the planning. I think it's like, well, we've got the marquee names, and so this will like kind of carry us through this slightly shonky, slightly slowed down thing. And the sad thing about it is that there are plenty of good direct-to-video action films but they are going to, because in this post, I don't want to sound too snobby, but like in the post like Raid, Ninja 2, Protect the World, where we've seen even in very low budget movies shot in Asia, we've seen exceptional stunts, like better stunts than we've ever seen in any Hollywood thing ever. When you've seen that and you've seen martial arts prowess and stuff like that, movies like this, which have a lot of reason to be watched and a lot of draw, and it's directed pretty well and the slight slow speed and slight kind of chonkiness, not so much of the fights but of the chase, both chases.
Yeah. And the ending too. Like you've got to say, like Ron Perlman, you've spent so long, right? There's been far too many scenes of Ron Perlman being an evil servant, although not like being evil, like talking evil, like sitting down talking about being evil is what Ron Perlman does. And then at the end of the movie, like you've got Ron Perlman and Dolph Lundgren, and they should face off, but like they don't really. He just, you know what I mean?
We called it Old Zilla and Slow Zilla.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's what it looked
because it was like two guys, because they're both tall guys, but it was like,
and they're both like tall, beefy guys, and they could have made more of that, but it didn't last. There was lots of fun to be had there, with all the fun they had with like Dolph Lundgren being like an oak, like a slow-moving oak tree.
Right.
You can have the same thing going on with Perlman. Like, it could be like two. That could have been fun, but they didn't follow through. They didn't have the time. They can only rent the helicopter for an hour or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's incredible is when you think of something like, think of the end of Hot Fuzz, right?
Right.
You have Timothy Dalton, who, is in very good shape, but he's an old dude, right? And you have Simon Pegg, who's a comedian, right? He's not a martial artist, he's a comedian, right? But they still, in the like Model Village Punch-Up, have a passable action sequence, you know what I mean? And I'm sure there were like stunt people in there, and I'm sure a lot of it was like planned meticulously and they spent ages and blah 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 blah. But that's not even a big budget movie. That's a movie made in England with a comedian and a guy who was James Bond in the early 90s. Right? So it's like, I always think to myself, like, if that can be managed just by, like you say, putting a bit of effort in, fucking old hands at it like Lundgren and Perlman.
That's right.
Like Perlman was Hellboy and Lundgren, and not too long ago either. And, Lundgren has been, in tons of action things. And it's just...
They all know their stuff. And Jar White...
Jar White and Tony Jaa was the best sequence in the whole movie.
No, definitely. But, you just feel like you want to... If you're going to get these people in, then you need to, like, James Bond it, like Roger Moore it. Like, okay, we're going to throw in a sequence where they do this. And then, all right, it's a bit like... speedboat chase or whatever, and it's a bit, all right, it's a bit dropped in there, but at least it's well done. And they know they're going to drop. Oh yeah, this is where we're going to have the speedboat chase. So if you're going to get, Jai White in there and Tony Jaa and all the rest of it, then have those sequences ready. But I feel like the Tony Jaa Jai White fight looks so good because those two obviously went away and tried some things, because. It didn't end either. That was really nice because the beginning part of the fight was unbelievably cool. Like they were doing really cool things, and then the end of it just kind of ended. And Dolph, thanks very much. Dolph just ran in, and the fight was over. And it didn't have any big climax to it.
Right.
It just because it's like, they didn't get. They obviously were. They were practicing it and came up with some really cool things. And then someone, ran into the gym and went, all right, lads, off to the shoot. And we don't know how it's going to end. Oh, don't worry, Dolph will walk in and, be a tree. And that's how we're going to finish most scenes anyway.
But you're being... I still claim that for people who have been waiting for this movie, and it's been a big thing on Facebook because everyone involved in the movie, from Jar White to Tony Jaa to Lundgren to everybody, of which a lot of action fans are going to follow them on Facebook and on Twitter and stuff like that, they have been tweeting, talking, sending pictures and of this movie for 18 months. Like, it's been a big hype machine.
Wow.
And anyone excited to go see it, while it is not the home run out of the park that I would have liked,
we thought it was going to be after 10 minutes.
It doesn't disappoint if you want to see some cool stuff. I didn't leave so dissatisfied.
No, I agree. No, I wasn't dissatisfied.
Like the Gunman, I left dissatisfied, but this one,
yeah, that's true. I know I wasn't. I feel like this one broke our run of.
If we'd seen this in the theatre, we would have been fine with it.
Agreed. Well, I mean, no, because here's the thing, right? if it had been like not so good to start with, and then it like built up and built up and built up, and then we'd end up with the big fights, we'd have ended up happy. Our problem was, after 10 minutes, we thought, this is going to be so cool. Like, it's directed well, there's no shaky cam. Lundgren's, like, doing really well. I really like the gag about him not running. Peter Weller's proper bebopping it. Joy White's in it. Tony Jaa's kicking ass. It's all going to come together. Ron Perlman's being a Serbian warlord bad guy. This is going to be fun. And then it just, like, a little bit, like, stopped in its tracks. And it's more that it really...
I still can't get out of my head that we watched someone fuck a goat. I really can't get that out of my head.
It was really horrible. It was really horrible. I thought it was going to be a joke. I thought it was going to be like this weird 70s stuff with like a bunch of over-the-top death sequences.
Yeah.
But it was just like nasty.
It was just
and
grim.
like you said, it was grim, fetishy, weird, not nice at all. And in the context of that, this was like, you know, a palate cleanser. It was really nice and it was well put together. And they were trying. They were trying to make a good film.
Right.
And I don't think it was because they're incompetent. I don't know what they're doing. I think they just didn't have very much time. They were obviously filming in Thailand. And Tony Jaa's like put in a word, you know what I mean? Like he's obviously a big star and got them a bit of preferential treatment. I'm sure Dolph was like welcomed as a big action hero and all the rest of it, you know. And I'm sure that they had, you know, a limited amount of time and a limited budget. But my problem was that they didn't prepare enough for the things that were always going to be make the movie good.
Yeah.
If you're getting these great people involved, then you need to at least have, you know, those sequences in there,
Yeah.
and not just one, like a couple, preferably near the beginning, to draw you in. I don't mind movies that sag in the middle, that's fine, but there wasn't enough.
The trouble is
at the beginning.
we're spoiled because the thing that the reason why everything from like late 70s Hong Kong action movies all the way through to something like The Raid are so good is not because they have huge budgets, they really don't, but it's because they have incredibly dedicated people who shoot for like 6 to 8 months. Like Hong Kong movies back in the day, like the ones that Cynthia Rothrock did, for example, they shot for 6 to 8 months, and most of those were on the action sequences. Like the scenes where they walk into the police station and say, you know, this guy's a bad guy or whatever, we've got to go over here. Like they were shot in an afternoon. Like they just didn't care, and most of the time, like they were shot in 4 different languages and then just dubbed later on because they just don't care. Like half the time, Cynthia Rothrock was walking around, literally going flim flam blim blam blue blah blah, because she didn't speak Chinese at the time, and they didn't speak English, and so it was just whatever. And then she dubs it later. But they spend, you know, 2 or 3 months on like one big action set piece.
Right.
So, and I think the same can be said for like The Raid, although it's obviously the cameras are a lot more handheld and you can shoot a lot quicker and blah 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 blah. I believe the prep on that movie was like a long time.
Yeah, well that's what they needed to do.
And that both the director and the star, who had already done Miranda, which is a decent movie as well, but like really had something to like prove and kick out the park. Whereas as good as this was, and it was fine, it still felt like everyone was spinning their wheels.
Yeah.
And you just, the problem with these movies is you really just want to be on set and just like shake a couple of people and go, oh, come on guys.
Yeah.
In 6 months there's going to be a bunch of like people who know that the action genre is dwindling, know that it's going to be taken over by CGI and superheroes and all the other stuff, and like are desperate for like some of these old school, old throwback. Just put in 10 more minutes of planning. Like, just please, you know what I mean?
It's not the acting.
Stick 2 more scenes of Weller in there. Like,
Yeah.
just film him reading the phone book. Like, do anything. You know
Or
what I mean?
hitting somebody with the phone.
Or hitting someone with a phone book.
You know, give Weller a criminal and a phone book and a room.
Yes.
Right? And there's a scene for you right there. Hey Pete, just improvise, bebop it, hit him with the phone book, whatever you want to do. You know, that would be fine. We'll be over here filming it. But that's the trouble with it is not that the characters don't work or that the story doesn't work. Although, like,
The story totally overcomplicated.
Yeah, it was needless because they wanted to. The problem was they wanted to fit all these people in. Because okay, you've got those action things where it's like, well, you need to, you know, like the Van Damme movies where he's got to fight the guy at the end in the tournament who, you know, broke his, you know, best friend's neck needlessly in the semi-final, right? You have to like build it up so that he's a proper evil, and if he could like kick a child as well at some point, so much the better.
Right.
That's fine. So they kept trying to like put those things in there, so that the fights would be like have some kind of like like heft to them. It's like I don't give a fuck about heft. Just have them fighting each other. I didn't care when Jai White and Jar were fighting. I don't care if Jai White was playing like a travelling clown who accidentally wandered into a fight scene and been mistaken for a guy that looks just like him, who, once shot Tony Jaa's uncle, with a pellet gun. Like, I don't care because their fight scene was amazing.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's it. So that's all. And instead of planning those things and saying bollocks to the story, which I feel like if Dolph hadn't written it, they probably would have done. They probably would have gone, look, we've got this, they could have downloaded any old fucking crap from the internet. Like, go to the Blacklist, but buy some script for $2,000 off some bloke that wrote. I'm telling you, there's a million cops, wife and daughter get killed, goes on revenge mission. There's a million of them. Buy the bloody script for no money at all, and then spend all your time on the action sequences and bollocks to the script. Because that's what people are there. No one's there to see Dolph emote, right? Nobody.
No, I mean
Nobody's there to see Tony Jaa awkwardly pronounce English words he probably doesn't really understand, right? They're there to see him do mad stunts.
Right.
So Tony Jaa should be doing nothing but mad stunts when he's on the screen, and Jai White should be doing nothing but amazing fight sequences when he's on the screen, and Dolph Lundgren should be doing nothing except looking grumpy, trying to run and hitting accidentally punching large pieces of wood in.
At one point, he did with his forearm hit someone's face.
That was really fun.
And it sounded like he'd broken through concrete. It was just a thunk. It was a
You
huge
felt like if I
break.
ever got hit by Dolph Lundgren's forearm, I would probably travel back into it.
Right, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how bad it was.
I quite liked it.
Yeah, there was loads of nice touches.
Lundgren
because
being
Lundgren had obviously thought about
Lundgren
himself.
being Godzilla was just smashing through things was amazing.
Yeah.
There should have been a lot more of that. And this is my big problem is that, and I think we're talking about the same subject, but basically that it wanted to be a complicated crime drama, and it also wanted to be an action film, and it didn't really have the nuts to do either. No. You know what I mean?
It didn't, because if you're going to,
it was three different movies jostling for space.
They had too many people, and the thing is, Jai White doesn't care about being given a character or not. Tony Jaa doesn't care about being given a character or not. You can have them play anybody in the story of Dolph Lundgren on Revenge, anybody. You've always going to have your evil lieutenants and your bad guys at the end. You know what I mean? You should have Ron Perlman's a bad guy and Jai White is his evil lieutenant, which is basically what was kind of going on anyway. But just make it more. Don't need all the fucking setup. That's just it.
Right.
And then you have Dolph Lundgren fighting Jai White or Tony Jaa. The end of the movie should have been Dolph Lundgren wailing on Perlman, them going at it old Zilla and older Zilla,
right.
And Jai White and Jaa. That's how you do it in those movies. In the actions, you break off. The lieutenant fights the secondary partner,
right.
And then the bad guy that you really want to get taken down fights the leading man.
And then Weller comes in and takes down everyone else.
Right, yeah, exactly. Weller with some absurd, I don't know, fucking give him a Robocop gun. Nobody cares.
There was an amazing bit, which was there where Lundgren popped up out of nowhere with a fucking rocket launcher, which was amazing. That was my favourite bit because he just popped up and I was like, oh yeah, of course he's got a rocket.
The bit I like is nobody taught Dolph about cover in firefights.
That was the best bit. He literally ran out into bullets.
Running really slowly between tiny rods of wood.
Right.
Going, I'm going to run from one
There was a really weird bit where he ran out into gunfire and actually got shot in the arm that looked like he really got shot in the arm. It looked like he didn't realise they were using live ammo one day and he went, oh, like that, kind of staggered back. He was
stood there for a bit going, ow, that really hurt. And he got shot. And the people who just shot him just stood there going, oh, I think we hit him. Well done, well done, Steve. I think you got him. Why are you blowing his head off? What are you doing? He's just standing there. It's going to take him a week to run from one bit of this car park to the other.
Anyway, I would give it a generous 3 out of 5.
I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Which is the same. It sounds lower, but it's the same. Mathematically, I've just realised.
Yes. I would give it a generous 3 out of 5 because there are too few of these movies.
Agreed. They should do more of them. They should gather old people together like this and make a fun movie with all of them. No question.
Right. And probably the best example of something like this that I've really liked has either been the Ninja series with Scott Adkins or the Package with Steve Austin and
we need to go.
Darren Shalabi. Anyway, that has been the After Movie Diner for this week. Thank you very much, James, for joining me.
Sorry about the brief, the sharp ending, but I have to catch the last bus back home. But thank you very much for having me. I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to next week's show.
Been a real pleasure.
Thanks very much for having me.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
And just a reminder to all people still listening that June 3rd, that's this Wednesday, so 2 days after this podcast goes up, is World Moten Day. For people who don't know, Matt Farley is Moten Media, and he has produced over 17,000 songs. He has an 8-hour playlist on Spotify under the Moten Media official playlist. That is absolutely and utterly fantastic. Matt Farley has been a guest on this podcast before. He also has his own podcast, the Moten Media Infomercial Podcast, so please look that up. Moten, by the way, is spelled Motern. So please look that up, please listen to that, and on June 3rd, please look up the official Moten Media playlist on Spotify and listen to it. All of us around the world who are fans of Matt Farley and Moten Media will be doing it to help support and continue the fantastic, funny, artistic, and inventive endeavor that Matt now finds himself on. So best of luck, Mr. Farley, with all of that on June 3rd. I'll be listening, as I hope some of our regular listeners will be too. But to end this week's show, we are going to have a clip from my latest album, The Pleasancing, which is a 10-track album all about Donald Pleasance. And that can now be found on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, Bandcamp, wherever you like. The Pleasancing by Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures. And here is a cut from that very album. Jumpsuit, I will help you start a war between America and Russia. There's simply nothing that I won't do if you let me live down here with you. Stavro Blofeld, your wish is my command, because I wanna live, I wanna live, I wanna live, I wanna live in your volcano lair. Capture James Bond, I will even help you kill him. I will ride your monorail and attend to your rocket. I would happily down here grow old if once a month I could use the controls and open up the secret hatch and we could lie under the stars. Come on, I wanna live, yeah, I wanna live, I wanna live, well, I wanna live in your volcano there with you. Woo. Well, when others mention Telly Savalas, and there are even some who mention Charles Gray, I want to scream loudly and